ya tentang sektor tambang batu bara. Kalau your opinion gimana nih? What do you think about sektor ini nih
Mhm.
buat kita di tahun
Kita
ini?
ya seperti biasa, thank you Cuan Troopers, thank you juga Joe. Udah lama kita nggak ngomong tentang saham Bumi ya.
Ya,
Sebelumnya kita pernah ngobrol-ngobrol juga sama Pak Dilit itu waktu ketika akan ada inbound capital gede banget masuk ke dalam Bumi waktu itu, di mana harga saham Bumi kita ingat bareng-bareng terbang gitu ya ke harga 150, 160, bahkan sampai 180 gitu harganya. Dan kemudian memang karena mekanisme pasar ini belakangan harga saham Bumi ini kembali lagi menarik untuk diperhatikan. Nah, tapi itu kan dari mikroekonominya. Nah, makronya yang perlu kita perhatikan itu tentu dari harga batu bara acuan. Belakangan memang menurun ya, di awal tahun sempat ada di 150-an, hari ini kita lihat udah di kisaran 125 sampai 128 dolar per metric ton untuk harga komoditas acuannya. Namun ini adalah harga-harga yang masih dikatakan cukup menarik bagi para pengusaha-pengusaha di bidang batubara, karena tentunya harga di atas 100, harga di atas 110 itu tentunya bisa memberikan profit margin yang menarik untuk perusahaan-perusahaan batubara gitu. Nah, utamanya Bumi. Nah, dan juga kalau kita lihat di sini untuk batubara sendiri, ini kita lihat harga batu bara acuannya walaupun menurun, ada beberapa sentimen yang perlu kita perhatikan gitu. Di antaranya ini tidak lain dan tidak bukan adalah dari China sendiri, Jo. Karena kalau kita lihat di China ini lagi gencar-gencarnya untuk menggunakan energi non fosil. Kita kan tahu batu bara itu kita sebutnya sebagai fosil energi gitu ya. Nah, ini mereka lagi gencar-gencarnya untuk meningkatkan pasokan-pasokan energinya yang non fosil gitu ya, entah dari apa namanya, tenaga matahari, PLTU, ataupun bahan-bahan lainnya begitu ya. Jadi supaya mereka tidak begitu bergantung dengan batu bara. Nah, selain daripada itu, produksi dan juga pabrik-pabrik di China ini ekonominya juga lagi melambat, sehingga permintaan akan batu baranya ini semakin turun gitu ya. Kemarin memang kita lihat ada data data ekonomi dari China, ada data inflasi, ada data PMI juga dan juga PPI ya, Producer Price Index di China memang naik tapi sedikit tidak signifikan. Ini tentunya juga tidak akan berdampak besar begitu ya bagi permintaan untuk batu bara. Long story short, adanya permintaan batu bara yang menurun, ditambah lagi ini kalau kita baca-baca berita sedikit gitu ya, berkaitan dengan harga batu bara ini dikatakan bahwa ada pemerintah China itu mendorong apa namanya, mendorong perusahaan-perusahaan batu baranya itu untuk kemudian memangkas produksinya begitu ya, sebesar 40 juta ton tahun ini. Ini tentunya karena dikatakan banyak kecelakaan di masa lalu begitu ya yang berkaitan dengan kecelakaan tambang. Jadi katanya di tahun 2023 itu ada kecelakaan tambang meningkat 50%, sehingga akan ada pemangkasan produksi hingga 40 juta ton di tahun ini. Harusnya ini bisa mempertahankan harga batu bara begitu ya, kalau memang ada pemangkasan produksi di dalam negeri mereka begitu. Tapi kita nggak tahu ini kedepannya seperti apa keinginan daripada pemerintah China gitu yang berkaitan dengan batu bara. Dan kita juga perlu memperhatikan di sini ya, selain itu eh, produksinya gitu ya. Ini jadi tadi kalau ada pemangkasan produksi, di sini ada eh, proyeksi untuk peningkatan produksi juga begitu di tahun 2024 ini. Katanya peningkatannya ini 36 juta metrik ton yang ada di tahun 2024 ini lebih lambat daripada tahun 2023 juga gitu. Jadi long story short sebenarnya produksi di China ini makin sedikit gitu ya, makin menurun, demand-nya juga makin menurun gitu. Jadi ya no wonder kalau kita lihat di harga batu bara acuan yang ada, yang kita pergunakan sekarang itu, kita lihat di kontrak berjangkanya itu semakin hari semakin menurun begitu untuk 3 sampai 6 bulan ke depan Nah, tapi makanya menarik untuk kita perhatikan dan nanti kita tanya langsung ke narasumber kita ya pada siang hari ini, kinerja daripada emitennya ini seperti apa? Apakah walaupun harga batu baranya turun, itu harga sahamnya nanti bisa tetap terapresiasi dan juga kondisi fundamentalnya tetap menarik untuk diperhatikan.
Oke, terima kasih ya Daniel untuk insight-nya nih ya, udah di-share buat kita semua ya teman-teman ya. Jadi memang kalau misalnya kita lihat sektor batubara itu tetap ada challenges-nya lah dan ya bisa dibilang, tapi tentu
Iya.
juga tetap ada kesempatan yang bisa kita lihat, dan yang paling penting adalah kita langsung mau bertanya begitu kan mengenai performance atau bisa dibilang juga strategi apa aja nih kira-kira ya yang Bumi akan lakukan di tahun 2024 ini. Oke, coba kita invite dulu PT Bumi Resources ya, Pak Dilip Srivastafa. Oke. Ya. Halo. Sebentar ya teman-teman, kita tunggu. Oke, there you go.
Hai Pak Dilip.
Halo.
Hello, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pak Dilip. Very nice to see you again, Pak.
Yes, likewise, you're looking very handsome.
Thank you, Pak Dilip.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Daniel already know you, but we haven't actually formally met. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joe. So currently, I'm working as a strategic partnership at Sucorsekuritas. And before we move forward, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Despite your tight schedule, you took some time to have a little conversation with us, because this C Talks on Instagram is actually a program from Sucorsekuritas where our clients and investors can have small or just tiny discussions to companies that are listed on IDX. So once again, thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome, Bob.
Okay. So I think we're just gonna give you a couple of questions. Obviously, in here there are some investors and clients that maybe don't have a full picture yet about Bumi, about the companies. So maybe if you can share a little bit of your company's profile, like when did the company start, or what does your company do, and etc.
All right, I'll be quite brief.
Yeah.
Bumi Resources moved into the energy space and fossil fuels at the end of the last century. In 2001, it acquired Arutmin from BHP, and it acquired KPC in 2003 from Rio Tinto and BP. Now, these were two very illustrious business groups in Australia and UK. So we inherited the best practices from them, whether it was on environment, social governance, and practices for mining. Safety has been a paramount concern. So has emission control, reduction, pollution, and all the softer factors that we are laying so much of focus on. So when we bought it, we were producing 23 million tons in 2003. And our current capability from KPC and Arutmin is to produce 90 million tons organically without that much of additional expenditure on capex. We have another asset which is producing very small quantities in Sumatra, Pendopo. We have plans for them either by way of a project or to see how we can put in a mine mouth if we can. And we are intensifying efforts to sell some of that coal to nearby power plants. So over the years, from 23 million tons, we were at 55 million tons at around 2010. We at 80 million tons in 2020 at the time of the pandemic. We slipped to 70 million tons in 2022 because of rains, the La Nina. 2023, we have done 78 million tons, and we will announce those numbers shortly. It's being audited. And in 2024, we were one of the first few IUPKs who got the RKAB approval. And our aim is to improve production further by around 5% if we can in 2024. We have a decarbonization strategy in place up to 2030 and build upon that into the greener space by 2050 and 60, which is the national priority for a just energy transition. So while we are treating coal as our core business right now, which is our cash cow, we aim to create additional efficiencies in the coal line. See what we can do at Pendopo. Hope we can derive more revenue and profit out of BRMS, the metals unit that we had founded. And we also have a mining operator, Dharma Henva, who's into mining operations. They do a fair amount of work in KPC and Arumi. So we are hoping that while we support them with contracts, they can support us on the bottom line.
Okay.
Now, when we look at the future, having received our IUPKs, we were one of the first to have received them for KPC Arumi. We have a coal downstream obligation from the government, which is mandatory. So we are in the final stages of the agreement to produce coal to ammonia. Now we will make formal announcements on the size and the partner once 2 or 3 major issues are sorted out. So we are in very, very deep discussion with our partner in China. And we are hoping that the government can also issue the regulation with regard to the pricing of coal for the project and with regard to zero royalty for the coal that we use. And with regard to incentives such as tax holidays and maybe concessional import duty on the equipment that we may require, which most countries actually who are encouraging the growth of green energy and downstreams are actually doing. At the same time, we are also examining 3 or 4 other projects in the non-coal space. Now, all of these pose challenges of their own sort. So we are trying to loosen out, trying to tighten up all the loose ends. And once we are ready, we will make formal announcements and let you all know as to the attractiveness of the project, who the partners are, what is likely to be the value accretion of these projects to Bumi. We are optimistic about our future. We are glad that the election process was smooth, and we are hoping that the authorities will look kindlier on the highly contributing coal sector and make it a level playing field within the sector and across the entire minerals and resource mix.
Okay, very interesting, Pak Dilip, about in the year forward, but
Carry on.
financial performance from Bumi in 2023. Yeah, is it expected, or there is more that Bumi gets on 2023?
Well, 2023 has been an extremely challenging year with regard to geopolitics, with regard to the economy, with regard to the currency, with regard to markets, with China producing more coal, India producing more coal, weather issues, the coal price, the very high fuel prices, and definitely 2023 will not be and will not see the highs of 2022. So from a Bumi perspective, we are trying to see what best we can offer in 2023, but I wouldn't raise too many hopes on 2023. I would rather talk up 2024. Again, 2024 poses its challenges, but I think they are largely geopolitical and market and pricing. So there would be temporary spikes up and there would be temporary spikes down. So we'll have to be very careful about how we manage our production mix, which should be matched to market need, so we don't build up unnecessary inventory. But I think our largest challenge really is margins, as you rightly said before. It is margin management which is going to occupy most of our time, and how we can make our operations more efficient. So we are hoping we can see some of the benefits of digitalization this year. Now, when it comes to Bumi, I think in our 9-month results for September, we had indicated that 40% of our gross revenue actually goes to the government by way of royalty, which is 32% of gross revenue if we include the penalties when you export at a price which is lower than the HPA. The second is we are the largest DMO supplier to PLN. And as you all know, it is at a subsidized price, so that does impact our average selling price. We do supply 25% of what we produce. And sometimes when others can't do it, we have to increase that as well. The third is that under the IUPK conditions, not only has the royalty gone up, but also there's profit sharing. And there are some other levies which relate to land compensation and other issues. And we also pay corporate tax. So really we are hoping, like I said in my opening statement, that with the new regime that comes in, the new administration, while coal sector remains the highest contributor on royalty to the national exchequer, I think 70% of all royalty that is earned in the minerals and metal space comes from coal. But coal is the one, like Bumi in IUPKs, which pays 28% to 32% royalty, while the rest of the sector is paying anywhere between 3.5% to 7.5%. So definitely there is a case for the authorities to look kindlier on the sector and maybe level out the playing field, not just within the sector, but also across the entire minerals and metal space. And that will be good for the development of the minerals and metals area, and also be good for improving revenue and earnings for the national exchequer in the longer term, and maybe accelerate the pace of a just energy transition into greener and cleaner areas.
Yeah.
We're also looking at carbon capture, utilization and storage for our captive power plants, and we are very actively eyeing technology to do that and become a pioneer in this area. And we would encourage power plants in Indonesia to look at it as well. It's part of regulation. The problem basically is everyone feels that it is very costly, but if you don't put any money into R&D to make the technology cheaper, I'm afraid it will remain costly. But since Indonesia has so much of coal, we can't just keep it in the ground. I think we should use it and look at ways on how to burn the fuel cleaner. And definitely CCUS, etc., is one of the ways to do it. So we are looking at it. Okay. We see 2024 as superior to 2023. The coal price is running between 130 to 140 if you look at the forward curves right now. Now, when we look at forward curves, they can be misleading because basically this relates to relates to spot availability. So if immediately there is excess stock, the price goes down. If there is no stock, the price goes up. And a fair amount will depend now on how severe the summer will be, which will impact the power demand up, how the monsoons will be, whether there will be flooding, and whether hydro can do it or whether other forms of energy can do it. And if there's a shortage of feedstock, then coal is the obvious fallback. Followed by that is the winter. If the winter is as severe as we saw in February this year in China, then I'm afraid It can freeze out the ports which supply coal, particularly from Russia, from the Baltic areas into other countries. And that will put strain on supply again, so the prices can spike as power plants look to raise inventory and make it comfortable. So I would say that these are very difficult factors to forecast. Infrastructure bottlenecks on top of that, La Nina and El Nino, to further add to the complexity, are all play roles, and geopolitics and economies, can further aggravate the issue. So we'll take things as they come, but our idea basically is to make our working capital efficient, make sure we produce only what the market wants, and not keep unnecessary inventory, and be active in the market and see whether we can also try and sell more in non-conventional markets. And we are happy to see that Indonesia is already raising its domestic consumption. I think quite apart from power, I think they're also looking at downstreams and cement and chemicals. And I think all that is good for the sector. And what happens as domestic demand increases, there'll be less availability for exports, and that is also good for coal prices. So I would say that over the next 10 years, we see the prospects of the sector as bright. Yes, there would be spikes up and down. There would be excitement that we have faced over the last 2-3 years, most of which is unpredictable and nothing to do with us. But we've got our nose to the grindstone, and we try and do the best that we can. And definitely, we are in discussion with the government on how they can help us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Dilip, for the explanation and also the insight about the coal industry in the 10 years ahead, right? So I fully agree with you. I mean, of course, there are bumps here and there, right? And it happens in every sectors and every companies as well, And then we also already talked about the geopolitical tensions, and then also the fluctuations of commodity prices, and then all the companies now starting to move to a green economy. So all these factors obviously will affect Bumi's performance. So, and then now from everything you mentioned, I think you mentioned a lot about 2024 is going to be a year better than the year before, right? We're just moving forward. And so we want to talk about, can you fill us in about Bumi's financial target for 2024? So like, what's the coal production target in 2024? Can you share that information with us?
Well, I think what's important basically is to figure out what the assumptions are for 2024. I think we are seeing a currency which will remain at a level of between 15,000 and 15,500. The fuel prices, we are not seeing any signal that they are coming down. And remember that Bumi's production cash cost, 30% of its production cash cost is fuel. So it impacts us significantly. There's a spare part increase. There's an inflation there of 2 or 3%. Tire prices have gone up, and they continue to go up, and availability continues to be limited. From our coal mine, we received our RKABs. If we produce 70 million tons in 2022 because of rain, we were affected. We did 78 million, hopefully this year, in 2023. We think we can do between 80 to 82 million tons, or a 5% increase in 2024. And if we move forward, we would technically be looking at, in perfect conditions, we should be able to produce 85 to 90 million tons without any significant expenditure on capex. So really, when untoward, unpredictable things happen, that 90 can become 85, can become 80, and like it became 70 in 2022. But from our side, we try and enrich the mix to see how much more of high-ranked coal we can do. But I think one must remember that our selling prices that we realize are also shaded down by the subsidy on the price to PLN, and we supply roughly 20-25 million tons to them, which is a fair amount of our production. And as a national supplier, I mean, we do give that priority at the cost of exports. Of course, there are other coal companies which prefer not to do too much of their DMO and export, so probably they do better. And I think they also benefit because they pay far lower royalty. I mean, if Bumi only pays 7.5% royalty, like some of the other coal companies, I have a feeling that our profit would be about $1 billion or $1.5 billion. So our dividends currently are going to the government.
Okay.
We are hoping that
that's a great news for the investor, Pak Dilip. Okay, Pak Dilip, as you mentioned before about the downstream in KPC and also Arutmin, can you give us more insight about it? Maybe more about the timeline of the downstream project, and also is there any challenges that been going on inside the KPC and Arutmin project?
You see, the KPC Arutmin combined project in Bangalore really is for coal to ammonia. And the initial phase, we've not been talking up too much of volume, but I think there's a scale-up capability. So while the project cost is not estimated as yet, or that we can disclose, but we could be looking at something like 600 million tons a year for commissioning by 2027. Now, when you say challenges, definitely these projects are pioneering projects. They've not happened before. Very few countries have got them in place. And if China has them in place, it is because of the Chinese environment and what incentives the governments give that influence much of what happens there. Now, India has a policy in place in 2016 to develop 100 million tons per annum of downstream capacity. And they very clearly defined what incentives they are willing to give and how they can accelerate the project. So they've talked about tax holidays, they've talked about duty reductions, they've talked about import duty reductions, they've talked about subsidies, they've talked about tax holidays, they've talked about how to get in technology, and they've also said they can help on funding. And that's very important because for coal companies, anything related to coal, it's very difficult to find funding. Even local banks here in Indonesia are rather reluctant to touch anything related to coal. Bumi has had the foresight to become debt-free in 2022. So we have zero debt, as good as zero debt on our books. I mean, there's some residual bonds which we'll pay off by the end of this year. And it's essentially our books are such which are ready for leveraging, should we be in a position to require it for our CTA as well as for our what you call non-coal ambitions. So we prepared ourselves the right way to be ready to have it funded, and we are looking at options. Now, the moment we are able to tie all the loose ends with the technology partner for the coal downstream, and hopefully with a decree from the government with regard to incentivization for projects, we should be in a position to announce the project definitely by the end of this year, where more details can be given, including the size of the project cost, who the partner is, and what is our ramp-up plan, because we have a timetable for that. Land has already been acquired for it, and some construction work has already started. So we are hoping the other two moving parts can come into place soon, and then we can put them all together like a mechano set and get it working and up and going. And in parallel, we are looking at 3 or 4 other projects. Now, what are the kind of challenges that you talked about? What should be the price of coal for the project? What quality of coal should there be from the project? Should it only be from KPC, which is high-ranked coal, or can it be any coal, which is a low-ranked coal, which might be more ideal? What ought to be the royalty? Will there be tax holidays? Now, in the first 3 years, you will not be producing, but you will be importing equipment. So will there be any concessions given on duty on importing of equipment? Now, those are the kind of nitty-gritty, that need to be sorted out in the decree. Now, we also have very strong partners. Now, the partner basically also has his own requirements. He wants certainty on price. He wants to know what is the government policy with regard to incentivization. He wants to have, if there are any guarantees or parent-parent guarantees, those have to be catered for. What ought to be the shareholding structure? We would like them to take equity. We would also like to have enough equity. And we will have tie-ups, within and outside the group with other people for ancillary services and requirements for infrastructure. And then we also wish to have a plan to ramp up capacity and maybe even go downstream from ammonia. So those are the kind of things that we all have to put in place, and we are hoping we can finalize all that by the end of this year. So it's already spent about 2 years on it, and we've looked at one American partner. Now that didn't work, so we went to China. And it's very clear that that government incentive and regulation is definitely required to support and break the challenge and obstacles the coal downstream projects face. And these are the kind of lessons we can learn from the biodiesel implementation. And India has a model already. Now, maybe all of it is not applicable here, but bits and pieces can be taken out of it, which is relevant. And we've taken the liberty of circulating that model to some of the media and to the government. Now, that we hope something can come out of it. We are always a willing discussion partner, because our interest with the government is absolutely aligned. We are the same. Okay. On non-coal, you have the same issue, which is if you get into metals, you need power. Now, if you need power, you have to do it from coal. Now, coal is dirty, so who wants to fund it? So those are the kind of challenges. Then you're looking at hybrids, you're looking at other things. You've got to look at economics, you've got to look at location, you've got to look at how it's going to be done, who your partner will be, where the funding will come from. So those are the things that we are looking at. I don't want to make it sound very complicated, but those are the things that we are doing behind the scenes, and we're not really talking too much about it. We would rather talk about it once everything is in place, all the moving parts are working together, and the aeroplane can fly. Then to your investors, we can tell them that, listen, here is the future value. Our current value is coal for the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. After that, I hope VRMS and Dharma Henva and Pendopo can add more value. We hope the CTA can add value from 2027. And the non-coal ambitions of ours, where we may even consider taking equity in projects. Now, we haven't thought too much about it, but we are looking at options to see what more we can do. There are many coal companies who are taking equity in running projects, we see.
Yes.
So those examples are not lost on us. So we are examining all these things in the larger space. And at the right time, once we finalize it, we definitely will keep you all informed and take you through our strategy, hold an analyst briefing. You can ask whatever questions you want. We'll have our project director there. We'll have our president director there. We will have Salim's. We will have CIC. And we're all aligned in what we want to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the explanation. Yeah, so I think you said you don't want to make it complicated. For me, it's already sounded very complicated. It sounds like there's a lot of moving parts, right?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat it?
Oh no, you said you don't want to make it sound complicated. For me, it already sounds very complicated. There are a lot of moving parts. There
You
are
know,
already
one thing you
a
must
lot of moving.
remember about Bumi,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
nothing comes to us very easy.
yeah, yeah.
So we like to have a strategic thought process where all the moving parts can
Yes,
join together, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
have an easy running, just
Yes,
like
yes,
Tesla is doing. But Tesla
yes, yes. So
wouldn't be if the U.S. government doesn't give it subsidy.
yeah, yeah,
And you of course know that of the $1 billion profit they earned in 2022, the U.S. government subsidized them to the extent of $500 million.
yeah, yeah,
Now that's the kind of support that one
yeah,
is looking for. Also, where on various matters that are pending, we hope we can see a closure. Then we can
yeah.
move very rapidly ahead.
Yes, yes. So it's just a matter. It's just a matter of time, right? When everything already in place, then it's just you know taking off from that point on. I mean, that's what we are hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we are optimistic,
Yes.
and definitely from my side, while coal has value, we think more value can be added from some of our other ambitions that I've said.
Yeah.
And our role really is to make our coal operations in the short term as profitable as we can. And even though there are challenges, we've got to look at ways on how we can minimize and meet those challenges. We may not be able to meet them fully because many of the factors are not in our control. But whatever we can, we will definitely do. The other thing that I touched upon very briefly is that funding is not available for projects in any way related to coal. So we hope that, once the priorities of greening and clean energy and movements towards exiting a just transition, that funding can also play a role, with regard to managing our ambitions forward.
Okay.
And that's also where authorities, I suppose, could chip in.
Yeah.
I think many
Yeah.
foreign partners
All right.
also
So
look for government guarantees and all that. But I think the India government does give partial government guarantees, if I'm not mistaken. I think China definitely does.
yes. So again, thank you so much for your explanation. Yeah, about the challenges, but also there are opportunities that are just in the waiting stage or waiting to happen that eventually will bring profit and better performance for the company.
Now, your objective and our objective is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've had the going a bit rough.
Hmm.
And we are also looking at ways on how we can convert ourselves from a non-dividend paying company to a dividend paying company.
Yeah.
That's largely because some of the retained earnings have been negative because of past issues. So
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to see how we can somehow also convert that by being regulatory compliant and trying to manage it. Now, if we are able to do it, then maybe we can accelerate the process. If not, then we have to make it up through increased profitability. But like I said, we are debt free. I mean, as good as debt free. So we don't have interest costs. So that helps us.
That's the best. Debt free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that's
That's a
very
plus. That's
interesting.
a plus in investors book, right?
I think
Some
we
companies,
probably
Yeah,
be the only coal company without a debt.
yeah. So
and also
talking.
other things, Pak Dilip. Following up your explanation and insight about the project and projection by 2024, others than zero debt condition, we also read that BlackRock is investing again in Bumi Resources. Can you give us more insight about the BlackRock investment, and also is BlackRock became one of the source of financing for the KPC and Arutmin project?
See, BlackRock traditionally has been a shareholder of Bumi. And if you go back 10 years, I think they've always had a stake in Bumi. But at this point of time, largely because of the green hysteria, many of the larger funds out of the US and Europe are not really investing directly into fossil fuels, or they're under pressure not to. In fact, some of them had even had stated policies that they cannot invest. Until 2022, when the coal prices hit the roof after the Ukraine-Russia conflict. When that happened, then many of the investors went to all these US funds and said, listen, this sector is a profitable sector. How can you say that you won't touch the sector? You're then not, our fiduciary interest is not being protected. So then a few of those funds actually reversed their policies temporarily and they started reinvesting. But I think now what's happened is that you have the FTSE index, you have the MSCI index, you have the Wisdom Tree index, and all these index funds, they have investment funds attached to them where it becomes obligatory for them to invest in companies who have been admitted into the index. So Bumi is part of MSCI Indonesia, small cap. Bumi is part of 5 indices of FTSE. I'm not sure if Bumi is in Wisdom Tree. It could well be. And on IDX, we've been hoping that they may consider us worthy at some stage of being in LQ45. I know that Sucorsekuritas is a major trader in Bumi shares. So is UBS, so is JP Morgan, so is Supra, so is CIMB, and so are many of the other illustrious houses like Chipta Dana and Lawton Dana and a host of others. But it's very unfortunate that none of them cover Bumi. So when you make the first statement, which is, Pa, we want to know more about you because we don't know enough about you. The real reason is that even though many of you are trading in our shares and you are informally recommending Bumi to some of your clients, you're still not covering Bumi. So if you don't cover Bumi, then it means that you don't have a view on Bumi. So if you don't have a view on Bumi, then it becomes very difficult. If we can't convince you, how can we convince investors? So basically, we are saying that thank you very much for thinking of Bumi. But it'll also be nice, if you can do some takeaways, and let your community know what we are doing.
Lately, Bumi become one of our investor favorite stocks, Pak Dilip.
What can I say? Because we have about 110 to 120,000 investors, shareholders.
Yes.
But 10 of them hold 70%. 5% are these index funds I told you about, the international ones. The 25% are the 100,000 people who are owning it. And there are many of them who want to know what we are doing. In fact, we also intend going with CNBC to universities and educating young investors on what, the sector is all about, what is energy transition, why Bumi, that kind of thing. So those are the kind of initiatives we are also wanting to take. And with Sukar, we'd be happy to deal with you more. It's CNBC is
Sure, Pak.
Okay.
Bumi and Dewa lately giving us a really interesting movement, Pak.
Which one?
Dewa and Bumi, Pak. Dharma Henwa. Of course we have a lot of take by your insight today, and also this is very interesting information for us about the project that you mentioned before, and your macro projection about the coal price by the upcoming year. So my last question would be about the dividend, Pak. You mentioned about dividend before. So is there already a decision about sharing a dividend by this year or maybe next year, Pak?
See, that's a very difficult subject to what you call be certain about. Now, like I mentioned to you, the negative retained earnings need to be converted into positive. Now, there are ways to do that, but whatever it is, whatever we do, has to be with the regulatory compliance. So those are the things that we are examining, and we are hoping that we can at least put up a proposal. And if that happens, then we should be profitable in 2024. So what's wrong with aiming for 2025? Why not even 2024? I mean, that's what I'd like to do, but it's really up to the powers of the Almighty and from above.
Exactly.
And proposes, God disposes. So,
Of course,
Okay.
of course,
So,
Dilip.
yeah, I think we had a pretty interesting conversation this afternoon, right? So this is we call it a very light discussion because we only have 1 hour time frame to just get a little bit of information about Bumi. Maybe there are some investors here who are watching this afternoon that maybe just want to learn more about the strategy and the challenges and what would you do as a company. So I think this is a pretty interesting conversation we had. So thank you very much,
not
Pak
at all,
Dilip.
not at all. In fact, you know what happens, largely the question on dividends that you raise. Now, what happens is when a company does not pay dividend or cannot pay, it basically means that fixed income funds, that is Dana pensions and pension funds, they find it difficult to invest. So we also want to reach out to institutional investors and tell them that this is what is our forward plan. And if we are
Yeah.
successful, that is one way we can get you back in as part of our family of shareholders.
So
And therefore, we need support. We want our story to be carried. We can't meet everybody, but what I would like to suggest is two things. One is we have one of the world's best mining sites. So we want to extend an invitation that if some of you want to have a look yourself at what a first-rate quality site it is, we'd be happy to take a trip of 8 or 10 people along. And the second one is that if you have a client base who are interested in knowing more about Bumi, we can meet them one-to-one, or we can meet them in a group, and we can talk very specifically about Bumi.
yeah,
I feel that we will have an earnings call for the full year results and the Q1 results maybe in the third week of April. And if that happens, you're welcome to join because it will be telecast most likely. And if others want to meet us, or they want to meet management, or they want to visit the site, or they want to feel more comfortable about what our plans are, if they want to know more about the projects, and whatever is the extent to which we can disclose, we'd be very happy to do that.
Thank you very much, Pak Dilip, for the invitations and the offer. And obviously, we'll talk about this, yeah, Daniel. Obviously, this is a very interesting invitation, and thank you so much, Pak Dilip, for the explanations about the coal outlook and then also the company strategy for this year. And then we just want to wish the best for the company. I think because we already passed our time also. I hope we can see each other again in the future, Pak Dilip, and maybe we can talk more
Certainly, I
about
think
the
let's keep in
company.
touch, and you're most welcome to drop by anytime you wish. I
Yeah.
think the date we are planning for the earnings call is likely to be around the 23rd of April or so.
Noted,
Just
Pak Dilip.
after the Ramadan period is over.
Sure, Pak Dilip. Thank you very much for your time, Pak Dilip.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Pak
you.
Dilip.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this afternoon.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys another time. Have a good day, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Pak
All the
Dilip.
best.
See you again.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye. Take care.